Good afternoon, friends. I hope you're doing well. Today is Erev Shabbat, Parashat Shemini. We just concluded Pesach, and although we're not going to read the Sefer Torah, we have an obligation to read Shnai Mikra V'Chad Targum, to read the Parasha. And this is a fascinating Parasha. Of course, most of the laws of Kashrut are in this week's Parasha, Parashat Shemini. I would like to share with you a very nice point of reflection for this Shabbat, for this situation, and all based, of course, on the Torah. So we know that there are two conditions for animals to be kosher. One is called Ma'ale Gera, the other one is Mafris Parsa. So Ma'ale Gera means they bring up their cud, and the other one is having split hooves. The Torah tells us that there are animals that have one of the two simanim, but not both simanim. If you only have one of the two, the animal is not kosher. In the non-kosher list, in the ones that have the ability to bring up their cuts, but do not have split hooves, the Torah gives us three animals. One is the camel, one is the hyrax, and one is the hare. I'm going to read to you exactly how the Torah says for each one of them, because there's a slight difference between the three. So the first one is the camel. When it says the camel, the Torah says, for example, et hagamal, the camel, ki ma'ale gerahu, uparsa enenu mafris. It brings up its cud, but parsa enenu mafris, its hoof is not split. But for the second one, when it brings the example of the hyrax, it says, uparsa lo yafris, its hoof will not split, future. And the third example, the hare, it says in the Torah, uparsa lo hifrisa, past tense, its hoof has not been split. So again, you have three animals, three same description of having only one of the two simanim, which is to bring up their cud. And in the three cases, they do not have split hooves. But in the case of the camel, it says present. Its hoof is not split. In the case of the hyrax, it says its hoof will not split, future. And in the case of the hare, it brings it past tense. Its hoof has not been split. Of course, the question is, why is this such a thing? You are here describing that tamehu lachem, demeahi lachem, that this animal is tameh for you, this animal is non-kosher for you. Tameh literally means it's defiled, it's impure. It means that it's not kosher in this context. The question here is, why does it say present, future, past? So Rabbi Israel Salanter said something very, very beautiful. He said basically that before you judge a person and you declare that person to be tamehu lachem, you have to know its past, its present, and its future. If you don't know everything about the person, about the subject or the object, you are going to be judging without enough resources of knowing that you know the truth. And this, says Rabbi Israel Salanter, is what the Torah is coming to tell you. Before you declare an animal in this context, tameh, you have to know the past, the present, and the future. Of course, in the animal, halachically, it makes no difference if you know the past, the future, and the present. But here we could learn something, a great musar, a great point to think about. And one better than these days, that we all have covered faces when we go to the street. We are all separated from one another because I believe our society has been very, very judgmental, especially on the external part of ourselves. And here we are separated from one another. It's always, a good reflection to think about the present, what's going on. Why am I separated from others? Maybe because being together was not always productive because maybe we don't know how to behave towards one another. So here we are, separated, thinking about how others are really great and not only focusing on the negative part of others. I'd like to share with you a story. This is a story that happened after the Holocaust. There was a couple who were married before the Holocaust. And after the Holocaust, while the wife had a strong belief in God, although after living the horrors of the Holocaust, she stayed very faithful and loyal to our tradition, our religion. But the husband had a very difficult time with this, and he decided to drop everything. We can't judge these people. We do not judge these people. But the wife, who was living with him, and they stayed together, of course, she wanted her husband to go back to his roots. And he was opposed to it. He did not want. So she made a deal at one point. He used to grab the newspaper every morning, and he would read it from cover to cover, which would take some time. And one day she said, "Why don't you go to shul?" He said, "Well, I don't go to shul because I don't want to go to shul. I'm upset at the God who did that, who allowed this to happen." She said, "You know what? Let's do a deal. I understand your point. You don't want to pray, no problem, no pray. But how about you take your newspaper and you go to shul, just sit in the shul and read that newspaper." He said, "What are you talking about? I don't want to go to shul to read the newspaper." She said, "Please do it for me." After a long negotiation, he agreed. And he decided going to shul every single day. Instead of going to the kiosk and then coming home to read his newspaper, he would go to shul and read his newspaper in shul, cover to cover, which would last the whole shacharit, and then would come home. What happened is with this person is that nobody ever judged him. Now pause for a second before I continue the rest of the story and think about ourselves. Imagine we have in shul somebody who comes, sits in the back of the shul, and takes his newspaper and starts reading every single day. At one point, one would say something like, "What's going on with this? This is so disrespectful. You come to shul to read the newspaper." While it would be true for many people, in his case, it was not true. And here comes the genius of the community where this happened, is that nobody said anything to him. But slowly, they started developing a connection with the person. Maybe at the end of Shacharit, they would come and talk to the man. "How you doing today?" Whenever there was a little kiddush, they would invite him to join. Whenever there was a little occasion, whatever, something happy, he would be a part of it. And slowly, he came back to religion until he dropped the newspaper and he started praying. And eventually, he became the president of that shul. This is just to show how not being judgmental to others could be extremely beneficial. This is actually the best way how to approach others. We really have to think about this because I truly believe that we have a lot of cheshbon nefesh to do, a lot of introspection to do on that. And in our community, we try to be really accepting of all. And in general, in our communities, this has been always the motto. I want to remind everyone something I saw on video from Stanley Chera, alav shalom. And he said on video that how he became Shomer Shabbat was all the great work of Chacham Yaakov Kassin, who really never said anything to him when he would see him going to work on Shabbat, until he just said to him, "Why don't you come to shul sometimes," etc. And slowly, I got him back to come to shul. And it was because it was coming from a place of love, from a place that he was not judgmental. We could do so much more when we're not judgmental, especially we don't know what's going on in the life of others. So many times I personally have seen people that could not understand certain things but decided to keep quiet, and then you find out about people and like, wow, maybe people are going through a difficult time, etc. And definitely is food for thought for these days. So I wish you Shabbat Shalom. B'ezrat Hashem, I hope we'll be back together very soon. In the meantime, I wish you Shabbat Shalom, good health, and please think about this. We always have to keep this neutrality, and we try to do that in our shul, to be accepting of all and to be not judgmental of others. Shabbat Shalom, and be healthy, safe, and well.